go look for the pain points in those apps. What's frustrating about it? Even if you look at it and this frustrates you, and then you just ask someone to download it and you watch them use it and you see them reach the same conclusion, because that's what a lot of learning comes from, is just handing someone a test phone and watching them use it. Sit down and just try it. The reason I say you need to write all this down as you're working on it and list it out is because there's things that psychologically are going to bother you that you're going to forget about 5 minutes after using it. I really find that the way you succeed in a saturated market space is to discover those pain points and note them down, because they're a hurdle. Some companies are like, oh, our product's good enough that it speaks for itself. But I guarantee you, if you get rid of that hurdle, 90% of people who deal with that hurdle are not going to want to deal with it again if they have an alternative that they don't have to run into it, encounter it.
Welcome to Alexa's Input AI podcast. Today we're talking to a true creative tech hybrid, Brady Jordan. Brady is the creative director and owner of Cook Play Media, where he focuses on telling powerful stories through video. But what makes his profile unique is his entrepreneurial venture into software, specifically as a developer of the nostalgic photo app Y2Cam. He has over 8 years of freelance experience, a graduate of the University of North Alabama, and is even a student pilot. Or are you a pilot now?
Student pilot still. I'm still working on that. It's been a little tricky to get up there and get some fly hours in.
I mean, that's really impressive, and I don't know everything about the process, but I'm sure it's long. We'll be diving deep into the intersection of creativity, code, and commerce, the kind of balance that defines the modern tech leadership today. So welcome to the show, Brady.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been excited to hop on, and I met you at a conference that I was actually filming down here in Atlanta. So I'm Atlanta based, and yeah, I've been really excited to keeping up with all of your stuff and all of your work. It's been really cool to talk with you and get to share a little bit of the cool everything going on in today's world. And yeah,
Thanks. I'm so excited to have you on because you are someone who, from my point of view, seems to integrate your hobbies with your life and your business. And you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur, if you will. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey and what you're doing now?
yeah, absolutely. Well, it all started when I decided I wanted to be a software engineer at 14, 15, while I was also picking up a camera. And so I actually ended up going to college early at like 16, 17, to pursue software engineering. And I discovered that at the time, I hated it. It just wasn't for me, and that it's crazy how much of a difference the landscape is today too compared to them. If I had, would I made the same decision today? I don't know. But, it was really based on the fact that I just didn't want to sit at a desk all day. I didn't want to have like a sedentary, like monotonous, consistent type of workflow every day, day in, day out. And, I'm a very creative person. And so like that was something that kind of started off early for me wanting to do that. And I found, I know you're New York City based. Funny enough, the YouTuber that sent me down the rabbit hole was Casey Neistat, which I know super cliche. Everybody's like, oh, I love Casey Neistat. And Casey's great. Like his storytelling skills, really just kind of opened the door to see like, hey, this guy's running around breaking a Canon 80D every other day and getting great content. And it looks phenomenal. It's moving. Like there's some videos he makes that are just YouTube videos that like I've seen people literally get brought to tears, and it's crazy. So, it all started with that. Basically, I ended up super young, went to college early. So I went back to high school instead of graduating early to go switch around and get all the scholarships to go to a different school for video. Basically, I discovered that passion. And yeah, I started contracting as young as like 15, 16, running around. I specifically have been, I've had a camera in my hand as long as I can remember, but ended up, I've been doing video for about 13 years now. For the roundabout way, but I went to school, worked with a production company up there. I interned with them and quickly went directly from that internship position to their social media director position immediately. Had a great time working with them and just learned a lot about working with brands, telling powerful stories in that all roundabout way. And got to the time where I wanted to graduate. I had a degree in broadcast journalism and digital media. Discovered that I also wasn't a fan of going the traditional route on that either. All my friends were applying to jobs and they were getting offers for, and I don't want to call out, but I will call out local news stations for offering to pay people $20,000 a year with no benefits. And I saw that happen with a lot of my friends, and I just wasn't on board with that because I was already contracting. And by this point, my senior year, I had been picked up by a luxury Indian and Pakistani wedding company from Atlanta. They had been flying me all over the country, and I totally did not fail a class because of it, but it's fine. And yeah, I had a lot of fun, traveled a lot. And I went from, taking a final exam in the morning to one night, ending the day that same day in a hot tub after filming a bunch of Lamborghinis with a drone. So it's been quite the journey. And by the time I went to graduate, I ended up just starting my company. So Clip Play Media has existed officially next month for 4 years. And I've been full time ever since. I went full time the month before I graduated college. And so, do I use my degree? Sort of. I interview people a lot. I work a lot with different candidates. I've AD'd on documentaries that are ending up on streaming services all over. I've shot a couple documentaries myself, but yeah, I did that for a couple years, moved to Atlanta. I loved it here. It's been great. And about a year ago, a certain company that works with a lot of creatives raised their prices a lot. And it really, really kind of just woke something up in me. I was talking to a buddy and I was like, somebody needs to start a competitor to them. Like, this is annoying. And like, they're charging people like 5 times the cost what they should be doing. I mean, even QuickBooks is cheaper than them at this point, and QuickBooks is not affordable to many. So I ended up, he's just like, why don't we do it? And so I was like, maybe that's too hard, but like, maybe you're right. So started a new company in the midst of all that. And that same day, May 3rd, 2025, I also decided to start pursuing my private pilot's license. So I'm working on that. I have a new hobby, I have a new company, and I've got both companies running right now. And that's where I'm at today. In November, I had a couple beers and got angry at all the camera apps on the App Store. And now Y2 Cam exists. That's actually the core story of where it came from. Yeah, that's sort of a slightly long-winded explanation of where we're at today. Now I'm a entrepreneur, student pilot, cinematographer, do commercial space work, and a serial non-sleeper. That's my other title. It's fun.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you have followed your hobbies and passions and through that creative work. I mean, that's not everyone gets to do that or is brave enough to do that, honestly. So that's really inspiring. Can you tell me more about what exactly Clipplay Media is?
Yeah, so Clip Play Media came out of it very much came from the vision I developed while working at the previous production company I worked for. It's basically what they were doing. They were running around telling powerful stories with brands. They worked with a full focus planner. The company it's called Hermosa Studios. I always credit them. The founder, Wes Wages, taught me so much. I learned so much from them. They were just really good people. And I ended up, they showed me that you could do it as a career. You could do video as a career, you can make it sustainable, and you could have fun doing it. And so that's basically what I went out and started Clip Play Media out of before I graduated. And yeah, I learned so much from them. But basically what we do is we're a commercial video production company with 17 contractors across 6 or 7 states, I think now. I lost count. But yeah, we operate all over the US. I filmed as far out as Vegas and California. Basically, we work with commercial, nonprofit. We do government contracting too. And we also work with ministries and nonprofits too, depending on what they're looking for. Pretty much anything and everything. There's a video of me from a year ago doing donuts in a Cybertruck in the sand dunes outside of Vegas. So if they say build it and they will come. I say call me and I will find a way to show up with a camera.
I love that. It sounds adventurous. So, can you tell me a little bit more about what you learned about, like technically creating a story, the storytelling with this digital content?
Yeah, so it's the FOMO is one heck of a drug. That's like if I had to summarize what the core philosophy is with it, but like it's also not like making people feel like they're missing out, but it's like so many people, right? They'll go and experience something, but they don't quite have anything to show for it, after the fact. And like there's something to be said for living in the moment. But there's also, I feel like personally, a way that you can live in a moment while also capturing it as you lived it in the moment. And so, a core part of storytelling and what we do with Clip Play Media, we like to go out and get into the nitty gritty, talk to people. I mean, really, I love context. I love hearing what brought people to the place that they're at there, but it's about capturing the joy, the moments, the emotion of it. And, sometimes you have things like I have a client that's a orthodontic appliance manufacturer, right? So there's not quite as much joy in the midst of that, but, it's like, it's in that case, it's really just showcasing the quality and the, really just, telling powerful stories. Like I could talk in circles about it all day, but it's that. It's going out, talking to people, asking important, inquisitive questions, and really just taking the time to be intentional with how you approach and how you showcase things. And there's a technical element of really throwing the book at it. We film on all Netflix approved cinema cameras. And we have experienced crew members on every crew. We're actually building out. I have a walkthrough day tomorrow with that client actually. And so we're going onto their facility and running through, looking through everything, taking notes. I mean, telling powerful stories is about making and capturing moments that make people feel something. If I had to sum it all up, if that all makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense. So, what would you say makes someone good versus great? Like, what is that differentiating factor in terms of a content creator?
I think it's willingness to do what others are uncomfortable to do or not willing to do. For me, a huge part of the digital content space that drives growth. I'm one of the only videographers in Atlanta that offers same day turnaround. So this is kind of a good, we'll talk about a case study that I actually have in Atlanta that I did. There was a social club that met on the Beltline every week at a different bar. They had about 50 people coming every week at the time when all this started, and they had around 2,000 followers on Instagram. So that's pretty good. They've done really good. They have a consistent, it's hard to get 10 people to show up to a social club. So the fact that they were able to get that much of a consistent crowd going, it's impressive, right? But they didn't have any video. They only had photo content, and all of it was like, hey, we'll post once a week on a random day because and I'm not going to fault them for that because they have so much going on already. Again, it's hard to start a social club where you can get people to show up consistently. So I started going and I saw this opportunity where, hey, what if we just told a powerful story of, with video of what this does, how this has changed people's lives in the community, because this is a public good. And so many organizations and clubs, I feel like, are a public good. And, not in the traditional sense, but in the sense that they do so much for the community and the individual. And so what I did with them, I showed up with a giant cinema camera every week, filmed a video, went home by 9 p.m., posted a finished reel, like cinematic, everything by 10 p.m., I think, by 11:30 roughly sometimes. So we started doing that every single week. And within the span of a year, I think 23 million reach impressions, and they have now, I think, 11,000 followers. And weekly, we have roughly 200 to 500 people show up now, and they've had as much as 3,000 people try to get tickets for their ticketed events in the span of 30 seconds.
Wow.
So they're huge, and it really is a success story of how if you're willing to go out and do the things that other videographers are like, oh, I'm tired, man, I'm going home. And like, there's this thing to be said for sustainability with hustle culture, but if you're willing within reason to go overstretch yourself in certain areas to reach areas that aren't typically seen, or to do things people aren't willing to do, it makes a difference for people, especially in the digital content space. It's about making intentional, high quality content that really you're able to really both live in the moment and capture yourself and others living in that moment, but also to do it in a way that's accessible and attainable to people.
Yeah, I really like that story. And it seems like you were creating both good content and consistent content. How much of that matters for the outreach, like percentage wise? Like, what if you had okay content that was super consistent or great content that wasn't as consistent? Which one of those do you think matters more for your reach?
I think, if you'd asked me this about a year or two ago, I would have said it's just about quality, but at a less consistent rate. But I have discovered that in the past year, and this is something some people would disagree with me on, but there's a way to have your cake and eat it too. You absolutely can do both. It's about narrowing your scope, right? So I have the process I've developed, the workflow I've developed to be able to do this for other people too, to be able to shoot content with a Netflix Super Cinema camera, sometimes shooting in RAW LT on Canon, which, all the video or creatives on this will know that's a lot of storage. But I've developed a process called the unbox workflow. So basically, I did like a whole Beltline was this case study for this. If you really narrow down the scope if you don't get overly ambitious with just the length of your content that you're making or the scope, basically all you do is take something stupid simple, stupid easy, 10 to 15 second, 30-second video, something super shareable, bunch it down to that and make it as high quality as possible. You really can't have your cake and eat it too with that. If you focus on just paring down the scope of what you're doing, but making it higher quality and then put it out consistently, when you get that, the marriage of those two things allow you to get both. So I would genuinely say, try to meet in the middle. Basically, to answer your question, you need to individually find a workflow, develop something to make something super high quality, but don't make it as extended or hard work scope as what you would want to do. Because I guarantee you half the people listening to this, you and me included, are overachievers with that stuff. And we're probably perfectionists. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your perfect is I would say 200% what most people's perfect is. It's just about making it high quality and make the approach simple.
Yeah, I can relate to that in terms of content creation, like ideas I have for my blog. I have so many, and it can be overwhelming and it can keep you from starting. But I think the most important thing is to ship it even a little bit before it's ready. Like just get something out there, because I think for an individual at least, it creates inertia for you to create more content. But you're right, a lot of people are such perfectionists or have such big ideas that it unfortunately keeps you from starting sometimes.
One foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
I shipped Y2 Cam, and it was a very different app. I shipped it back in January, and I wanted to spend another month working on it. But if I had done that, it wouldn't have gotten to the place it is now. We had over 400 people fill up a rooftop with one of the more popular DJs in Atlanta last weekend. And that was because I shipped something that I didn't feel like was personally my standard, but it was ready, and people were ready for it. So just ship it. Absolutely just ship it. I feel like that's the best I didn't expect to be a tech founder at 26 years old, but that's one of the things I've learned in this very short journey amidst a longer journey. So absolutely, it's good advice.
So tell me a little bit more about the app development that you've done. What are your considerations for that? What is your process?
So I am a very creatively impulsive person. I will have ideas and I'll start dictating it. And this is, totally not while I'm driving. I'll start dictating these ideas in a notes app immediately. And it's more so, it's really funny because like so many of my ideas that have done decently well have come out of a creative frustration with different things. I mean, that's the entire reason the tech company exists now, was me getting frustrated with a really big CRM provider. But so many of my ideas have just come out of frustration, and I like to sit down, note them down, write them down. My biggest advice to people with that too, if you have an idea, write it down. Please, for the love of God, write it down. You're gonna forget it. Especially if you're creative and you have a billion things going through your head at once. The thing that was really a gateway drug for me was figuring out that it's all of these people who have made these big multi-billion dollar like ventures, multi-million dollar even, it all started one foot in front of the other with an idea. So the only thing that sets you apart from them in a lot of cases is just execution. And obviously market response, that's a whole thing. But the app development process for me, it's quite literally been, I started the first app, which we're going to release. We're looking at a target release date of April to May. We're entering testing for it right now. There will be more details on that soon, but that's the thing that started this whole tech company. Was quite literally, I got frustrated. I sat down and I'm like, okay, one foot in front of the other. And, like I said, I was almost a software engineer 10 years ago. So I still understand the structural component of Swift and, how you can make tab view applications specifically. And so, at that point, I'm like, okay, there's certain elements in this process I don't know. Like, how do you build a proper backend with a proper database? I've since learned a lot about that. But at the same time, you seek out your circle of friends. And if you're good at making friends and networking, that's huge. And even if you're not, you just need to go around, go to these creative meetups, meet people. That's where that social club client has actually come in clutch a lot. I've met a lot of people. So I ended up, I just one foot in front of the other with that. And then the camera app was a couple beers and a little bit of frustration. So I went home and it's super simple. It's a tab view application with a camera preview. And so built a very, very preliminary alpha MVP overnight. Put it in the hands of a couple people, put a live test flight link out, and we had 30 users within a week. And so that's when, ultimately it's just one foot in front of the other. The thing that sets people apart from those who say what if and those who get it done is the people who put one foot in front of the other. And you're gonna have bad ideas sometimes. Like I had an idea this week. Maybe it's not a bad idea. I don't know, but I've already kind of talked about it a little bit publicly. I was like, oh, I'll keep this under wraps. But you know how so many people are trying to ditch Spotify right now because they're not fans of, either they just aren't a fan of how the value is changing the subscription, or they have like personal disagreements with the CEO. That's another thing too. Another big reason. I built a wrapper for Apple Music called Project Mixtape. Built this in a week last week. I spent most of last week working on this while I was on set for a client when I went home in Tennessee. And basically built a whole wrapper for Apple Music. Discovered that the guidelines might be a little tricky on it, and kind of put it all on the back burner. But I did it. I learned from it, and again, you're never worse off for having tried something. I love the quote that's super overused now by a lot of founders. Thomas Edison did not fail 1,000 times at creating a light bulb. He found 1,000 ways not to invent the light bulb. So
I like that.
it's a very Yeah, it's a very rough paraphrase. I absolutely butchered that, but you get the point.
I get the point. Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you building now with AI tools? Have you found those helpful for building apps like the ones you're just discussing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a bit of a hybrid approach with that because I do have a little bit of background in it. I'm super intentional. I do a lot of planning beforehand with these apps. One of my apps the main one that I'm working on right now that's still in development, I wrote out 20 pages over a week, full pages of how I wanted each and every individual detail feature to work, did some research on what would be the best implementation of that. For example, like, developers know some things like UI kit is a little bit better for some types of scroll view UI, like pinch to zoom. Some things are better built in UI kit versus Swift UI with iPhone apps. But so basically, I kind of knew already what I was going to do with that. And at that point, you've got features and tools like Claude Code and VS Code. And so I've got those extensions. You've got Cursor now, I have very mixed feelings about all of these subscription prices amidst the bubble and all the stuff that's going on right now. But there's nothing wrong, I feel like, with having, as a developer and as someone with an idea, an entrepreneur, going out and having a tool build a skeleton for you and then implement all of it, fill it in the rest yourself, design custom icons. For Y2Cam, I designed most of the icons in myself in Canva and Photoshop. And I went in and, filled in, basically had Claude Code build the skeleton of it, went in and filled out the rest of it. It's huge. I mean, I have a friend I have a couple friends that work at an incubator down the street and they build apps for people all the time. They're full-time software engineers and they've been for 20 years and they all have like 3 Claude Code Max subscriptions each. And they just run out of one every month and they go to the next one. It's just crazy.
That is crazy. I also use that a lot at work. It's definitely changed the way I worked. And you're right, it helps to put a skeleton. You talked about how you are, I'm paraphrasing also, are about action, like just doing it, putting it out there. But you also mentioned that you are a planner. Can you talk to me about that planning process and what you found that works? When you're building an app, what were the important planning considerations that you had?
Well, the biggest thing is, a lot of my apps are headless by design. A lot of it's done on device, which I know makes the front end super heavy, but there's a way to implement it if you're smart or it's efficient, But the main considerations you should always have when you have an idea that you want to morph into something, you need to think about, is there a market need for it? How is this going to help people? Those are the 2 things. And also, how can I do this better than other people? What's the biggest weakness of the thing that made me frustrated enough to do this? Those are the huge things. With planning though, what's funny is I am very ADHD, very all over the place, but I'm also clinically a little OCD sometimes. And so, I've been years, but since I was looked at all that childhood diagnosed stuff, but could have grown out of it. But I will say that quite literally, I still have those elements where I will get obsessed with the project and I'll just chase it to the end like Captain Ahab and his whale. And that's basically what I like to do, is sit down and think of every little element of how this is going to work, as a creative versus like a software engineer first, then creative, opposed to that difference. I sit down and think about what users are going to feel when they experience it. I like to think down to, in Y2Cam and, our other app, there's certain things where you press a button and there's a double hit haptic feedback that lasts about 0.25 seconds. And it has an easy ease spring in animation. It feels tactile. All of that to say, you push a button and it feels like a button. And it's the dopamine hits from things feeling tactile and people feeling satisfied from using it. I want you to walk away from an app feeling like you're using a genuinely helpful, fun tool, but I'm also not trying to infinitely capture your attention like Meta. I'm trying to make people feel satisfaction when they use an app. And so a lot of my process is just sitting down. I taught myself how to use Figma in 3 days last year. And some people would absolutely judge my cleanliness with Figma, with my boards and everything, but sit down and really just plan out what you want things to look like, sketch it, write it, and think about every little element. I mean, I would tell people, think about the small things first too. As far as the back end stuff, I defer to the people I have around me who are inevitably going to, it's their job to do this, but tear me apart for my security reasons and help me build it back better. Yeah, that's an important thing anytime you're dealing with customer data. And it's huge. There's a reason I'm much slower to push out things that could be a security risk with things too, if they have a back end. Obviously for beta testing purposes, I have a small group of people and there's a reason I don't market certain things before they launch to help with security as well. But Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit more about Y2Cam and how this process came about. You mentioned that it was born from frustration from other tools.
Oh yeah.
How did that?
Oh yes. So Y2Cam came out of what I like to call a radically consumer first ideology that I have for certain products too. If you've ever heard of all these different grid planners and, like apps like Scroll, which they're phenomenal, but like, they're collage, those carousel makers for Instagram. A lot of photo editing apps on the App Store are great, but they charge you $8 to $10 every single week to use them. That's not monthly, that's weekly. And it's like it's a very, in my personal opinion, no defamatory, but like it feels very predatory. Because when you show your users that small price, you've really broken down a monthly cost that what's 8 times 4, that's $24 a month. And you're seeing a smaller price, but they're preying on consumer psychology of, oh, I see it, instant, want it now, buy. It's easy. And so there's just a lot of bigger corporations that will use tactics like that for simple things like camera apps. And, one of the ad copies we're working on for Y2Cam right now is we don't think you should have to pay to make a collage, a subscription. It's crazy. So because Y2Cam is a catch-all solution, it's also a competitor to apps like Snapseed and Adobe Lightroom. But the thing that sets us apart is we take the approach and the solutions that all of these apps offer, whether it's the carousel, maker for Instagram. We have a feature called Panel Studio in Y2Cam that does all of that for free. And we also have a fully included raw editor on par feature-wise with Lightroom for free in the app. So what other apps do, they charge you weekly for. Y2Cam integrates an alternative for free. And what those apps don't do, we offer a subscription for or a one-time purchase option. And our subscription is insanely transparent. We have a 7-day free trial, and we notify the user via push notification twice before the trial runs up. So if they don't like it, they can cancel. We want consumers to feel like they're trusted and we're serving them, not that they're the product. So that's a huge part of Y2Cam. Like I just got frustrated with all the camera apps on the App Store basically. And, like there's apps like Fuji, which are really cool. They're like disposable feel. And I found myself not carrying around my point and shoot camera anymore for like 2 months after I built this MVP and loved it because I managed to really replicate that experience, but also build upon it. We're also the first app in the world that brought user-created Fujifilm recipe compatibility to the iPhone. I've been in touch with big magazines and publications, like giving them access and letting them try it because it's a cool feature nobody thought to add. And obviously, you got to be very careful legally with all of that too, which we've dotted our I's, crossed our T's, and full respect to any intellectual property with that. It's all user-created recipes we're compatible with. Yeah, that's basically the core of Y2Cam. It started out of a frustration for forever subscription. We need to end forever subscriptions and give people access to things at a more affordable and attainable price. And so we are $2.99 a month instead of $8 a week like some of our competitors, which is radically affordable, right? And then we're $19 a year. And then we offer a $49 one-time fee for life if you want to pay it. So the biggest thing is just giving people options and making them feel like we trust them and we want them as a consumer to make the decision that's best for them. You will own nothing and be happy about it. I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, I love that. So who are your users mainly? What is this user profile that's using Y2Cam mostly?
The user profile of Y2Cam is kind of interesting. It's very broad, which I guess was always going to happen. You have apps like the Fuji app I'm talking about, the one that it's like a disposable camera app on your iPhone.
I think that's
Yeah, it was really popular a few years ago, in like COVID in 2020, and it's still popular by a lot of people use it. But Y2Cam hits a very broad market. Our three main users are the regular average consumer, someone like at a party. I've seen groups of girls use it at parties to take like selfies with all their friends and all the outfits, the fit checks and everything with a flash, and it's got a filmy look to it. I've seen that category of people, just everyone who likes to take fun pictures and remember things for what they are. And I've also seen enthusiasts, which is the second category. People who carry around Fujifilm X100 X100 XT30s, XT4s, 5s, cameras that they have on their daily that look like film, but they're digital. I've even seen people, I have a friend who's an avid Leica enthusiast. He carries around like probably $10,000 to $15,000 in Leica point and shoots. And he uses Y2Cam more for casual things, which is crazy. So like the average enthusiast with that. And then you see power users, which that's the category that right now that's like really emerging more because people are starting to figure out like it's not just a disposable camera app, it's a full-blown alternative to pro editing tools like Lightroom. We have automatic subject detection and masking built in as well. We just added, I'm testing it right now on a build on my phone, but I have retouching, in certain areas if you want to get a subject out. And everything is on device. Everything is processed on device. It's completely headless. And so by design, privacy's in mind. We don't have any form of connection. We even have a feature called, like a backup and restore feature for all the settings in the app. And it saves a JSON text file and everything in a zip to your Files app. And you can just restore from there if you want. But yeah, custom film stocks, pro editing tools, all on device. We have a batch editor built in that can process up to 200 photos in 30 seconds with a film simulation on top. So a wedding couple could, a wedding photographer could plug up their Canon or their Sony and immediately import all of those features via USB, all those photos via USB-C, and the bride and groom can go home with 200 edited photos in 30 seconds.
Oh.
Via AirDrop too. So it's like immediately, boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Y2 Cam though. That's our whole thing.
Wow, that's so exciting. What is the cost for running an app like this?
So
Is there a compute cost? Are you hosting anywhere or the database? Like what infrastructure cost do you have?
with Y2 Cam, it's pretty much nothing. There's obviously the Apple developer program cost, which is $99 a year. Again, for transparency's sake, I made that back in like 3 weeks with Y2 Cam with the launch of it. So we had enough people. That's our main cost with Y2 Cam. With our other app, it's based off of cloud architecture, and like I've been told recently by my backend developer to stop telling people which system we're using. Security stuff with that, but there is a compute cost with that. But right now, it's like super cheap. I want to say $5 to $10 a month to run it right now, and this is with a couple of beta users. Obviously, that'll scale, but our target cost per user is probably going to end up being, our launch price is going to be, I want to say like $10 to $25 a month in that range. I have an exact price, but all that's gotta go through the process. Out of that, I'm estimating it'll probably cost around like $4 to $5 per user, our cloud cost for that. Like headless apps, that's the benefit of them. We don't have any backend to worry about or pay for, no compute. And the other thing we're looking into is Apple's APIs for their on-device foundation models. So you can actually use the Apple Intelligence model on device, which is about to improve because they partnered with Google to use Gemini's framework. So one of the features in that Apple Music wrapper for people who wanted to, that was similar to Spotify, in design, but it gave you like the feel of Spotify and the algorithm. One of the features we have in there is Ask Apple Intelligence for song recommendations. And it can go through and comb the Apple Music catalog on your behalf, which is crazy. It's all on device. That app is completely headless, and we have AI features integrated. So it's built with privacy in mind. That's kind of a benefit to all of it for the most part. So yeah, to answer your question, there's none for Y2 Cam.
That's really a smart setup. That really reduces your total cost, and so you can reduce the subscription. So it seems like you said, those other apps are really making a lot of money then, getting that weekly subscription.
They are. And I feel like, in my personal opinion, it could be interpreted as at the expense of the user instead of empowering the user. That's what really drove me crazy about it. I mean, obviously I got mad enough after a couple Tecate beers to go make one.
Yeah. And talk to me about this new product that you're mentioning that is the cloud infrastructure backend.
Yeah. So we're launching a CRM for entrepreneurs and creatives that is affordable, but also gives them access to resources that they otherwise would not be able to acquire, or it's very hard to seek out as a 1099 contractor. So that's kind of the framework for it is like kind of proprietary. So there's certain things I'm keeping a little under wraps until we launch, but basically it's a way for you to run your business. But not only to run your business, but to run your business in a sustainable way. I'm trying to, a lot of people, in a lot of cases, the core philosophy that like really drives this as a product is right now in the job market, you're almost better off in a lot of cases being a contractor than you are a W-2. And that's just the state of the market. And I foresee that continuing into the foreseeable future for the next couple of years. You're going to be better off in some fields contracting in a lot of fields than you are actually working as an employee. So, a lot of companies kind of use this as leverage against people. And they're like, oh, well, it's a steady job, but I want people to be empowered to say no to things if they don't want to, because they're like, well, I can go get this and make more money doing this because of this as a solution. So that's basically what we're running. It's a business management platform. And there's also, we give you access to certain resources that normally it would be hard to get or hard to find unless you were a W-2 employee with a bigger company. So we want to really flip around for a lot of people this power dynamic of, hey, like it's an employer's market versus I'd rather make a tool that helps make it an employee's market.
Yeah, it seems like as a contractor or someone building their own thing, there are a few different components that are not easy to figure out that an employer normally does for you. And probably a lot of people have trouble with that from like the legal perspective, how to set up a company, getting healthcare and other things.
It's hard.
That you ran into.
It's very hard. I mean, as someone who started a business and has been self-employed for over 4 years, it's one of the most, they say when you can either work 9 to 5 or 12 to 12. It's what it can be sometimes, because also you're, from just a monetary or like a beneficial perspective of like, hey, what do I have covered? What do I need to cover? You have the mental health component of it, which is, I don't set, you set your own hours. Nobody sets your hours for you. Nobody says, okay, time to go home and turn off at 5. And so you just, like, I worked probably all weekend on different projects. And it's one of those things where, if you love what you do, it's great, but how do you slow down? How do you have a tool that reminds you need to take days off? How do you have a tool that, shows you these resources so you don't spend 5 days researching how to open an LLC, or you don't spend 5 days figuring out like, how do I cover my health insurance costs? How do I set this contractor list up? How do I do business? There's so many people who spend so much money on courses and educational resources too. And one of our partners, we have 2 partnerships. One of them's Handshake Deal officially. The other one is in the works right now that help provide educational resources as well within this. So it's about, I feel like too many people become middlemen companies just for the sake of, like pure profit over how much they help people. And so many tools there's an opportunity to, a golden opportunity right now with the AI gold rush and everything, where all of these companies that are operating on 20-plus-year-old infrastructure, they should be a little scared, because there's a lot of opportunity for someone to come in different industries and just disrupt purely by building something that is based on infrastructure built in the last 10 years, not 2005. Yeah. Which, fun fact, 2006 actually was 20 years ago, which is terrifying. Yeah, my cousin, one of my cousins is born in 2009 and she's about to go to college, and that's crazy.
Yeah, it's
just crazy to me.
That is crazy. It doesn't compute in my brain. But so this product seems quite different than the Y2Cam product. It's in terms of our process and building, one has a back end, one is an app that's fully on the phone. How have you managed these process differences, and what are the key different decisions that you've made for them?
Well, I think it's all the same core philosophy. It's radically consumer first. Every single turn, how do we make something that, because another component of that, like both share, is I want to make a product that's beautiful and easy to use. And it's just, I want the interface. I don't want, especially with something as stressful as running your own business. And Y2Cam isn't built just for people who are contractors full time, or not Y2Cam. The other app that I've been slightly vague about isn't built for people who are just full time contractors. It's something that you could run a side hustle with. You don't ever have to be full time with it if you don't want to. But we're still going to give you the same access to resources and things that people would need. But the thing that it shares is this philosophy, like I talked about, the intricate details earlier. It's, how does this button feel? I have a feature that both apps share. I can actually show you from Y2Cam right now. And I developed this for the first app and carried it over. It's like a shared visual design language thing. I call it the floating action button. This is Y2Cam.
Nice.
I don't know if you can hear the little gear spinning. There's also haptic feedback.
Yeah.
I have it in debug mode, so it's probably a little laggy right now. But the feel and the fluidity and the smoothness of that animation, the intricate details, the big buttons, the representation of data within the UI and the UX, user experience itself, that's a huge part of what both apps share. I might have gone a little down a rabbit trail with that, but that's something that both apps share. And the different approach between the two is obviously, you consider more things like security and like how things are going to be delivered. And with Y2Cam, it's just a camera app. It's headless by design. I'm a huge believer in taking what some people think is a weakness and making it a strength. So how do you take something that traditionally you're like, oh, this has no back end, it's going to be super heavy. What are the benefits of that? Ask yourself that before you take any approach, before you decide to build a back end. And I know some people are gonna come for me on this, but it's like, seriously, I mean, I've talked to people who've been doing this for 20, 30 years. Ask yourself, what are the benefits? What are the drawbacks of this? Even if it's like something as dumb as, do I make user auth local? Obviously not, but go sit down, ask yourself, what are the benefits of this? What are the drawbacks? Because it also gives you a clear approach when you build things out more of like, hey, maybe I want to do this in a different way. Maybe I want to execute this in a way that is more private or handles data a little more securely. So I hope that kind of answered your question. That's kind of my rabbit trail of the whole thing. But
Yeah, I took two good things from that is that both are very detail oriented and focused on the feel of the app, even though they're very different applications for different use cases, you still have that mindset for both. And another one is always know the trade-offs for the decisions. I think that's important as an engineer or building a product is sometimes we just are mindless about how things are because they should be. But it's really important to develop the skill of decision making by knowing the trade-offs as well. Knowing the why, understanding why you're doing something.
absolutely, it's huge. I mean, you really want to think about, why, I mean, yeah, just why you're doing it. I mean, how is this going to help your user? Even if, because like some people will say, like, and I've talked to several people about this, it's, if your main thing is that your product's cheaper, you've kind of already lost. Anyone can go out and make something that's cheaper. It's about making something that's memorable, helpful, and just enjoyable to use and doesn't pile up on the cognitive load.
Yeah. So in your Y2 cam, your goal was one of them was to make it cheaper, but also you wanted a better experience at the same time.
Well, yeah, we have the Huji app for iPhone, which blew up a couple years ago. It was popular because it was quite literally, I can show you on here. It's cool. And I love Huji. It's a great app. Like I built an alternative that even expanded on what they did. But this is like, it's a disposable camera, right?
Right.
Well, yeah, it looks like a disposable camera. It's fun. So with Y2 Cam, we were inspired by that concept and we took our approach to it and expanded on it. We made it a better experience. We have a disposable mode that launched at the launch party. It unlocked on everyone's phone via push notification at precisely 7:45 p.m. And people spent the rest of the night shooting with it, having fun with it. And that was the core idea, right? To build in features that, maybe, I mean, it's because I don't like to say that we're a competitor to Huji. We're an alternative because Huji took the narrow scope of what they were trying to do and executed it very well. It comes back to that concept we talked to earlier with, take a small, simple execution or take a small, simple idea and execute on it really well in a high quality way. That's what they did. And so with Y2 Cam, we took that approach as well as the approach to several other forever subscription apps and just expanded on it and made it arguably, in my opinion, a better product that was more attainable to people.
With apps, it's interesting to me, especially in a space where there are like competitors. How did you approach convincing people to download it? And then how do you approach getting the metrics around the usability of it, people coming back to it?
So with our user flow and everything within the app, we kind of let the product speak for itself. This is something I studied a lot. I listened to hours and hours of podcasts about the design philosophy of, designers like Johnny Ive and from Apple, obviously. And then, I listened to a lot of like what Steve Jobs did well with getting people to use his products. And one of the things I tried to do was just show, not tell, let the product speak for itself. So the biggest thing that I saw as an opportunity to get people to download it and try it was let's shoot some cool photos. Let's put it out there. Let's put it in the hands of a lot of people and let's have them have fun with it and have them share it. And then let's make it accessible. Let's make it free. You can download it. And because of Apple's free trial system, we had to work within their free trial system, but we did it in a way that didn't make it feel like it was getting shoved right at you. And so we presented people with, hey, you want to try Studio for free or do you want to continue for free? We'll remind you if you want to cancel. So that's basically what we did. We put it in the hands of people. And Atlanta Film Festival posted a photo, or a recap of their event they did, sponsored by Kodak. Every single photo was shot in Y2 Cam.
Wow, amazing.
That was super unexpected. I found that out a few days ago. And everybody's been downloading it because it's accessible, it's free. And I built in tools that the more you dove down the rabbit hole, you keep coming back to it because number one, it's psychologically, it's just fun to use. But it's a powerful tool. You're using it to get work done. You're not mindlessly scrolling, and you're having fun. You're creating memories with it. I mean, there's so many. I took this one photo on it when I was in Tennessee the other day, and I just keep coming back to it. It's my car,
Wow, that's cool.
right? And there's this light leak in one photo. Everything is random. It's organic. There's date and time numbers on it. And that's the whole idea. Make an experience that's fun, memorable, and organic and accessible to people.
Yeah, easy to use and fun. I like that. And then let it speak for itself. Let people talk about it and people use it and let it grow. That's a
I don't want people to feel like they're being sold to.
yeah.
I want people to feel like I'm providing them something that serves them. That's important, like it's a servant leadership model with a lot of things. I firmly believe that anytime you get into a position where you're making something for people or helping people, you're serving them. You're not, I mean, that's the fundamental idea of economics in some ways. You're providing a good or a service that's meant to help people make their lives better somehow. Why else would they download it? And it's a good faith approach too. Like, if you never spend $1 on my app, I still want you to have a great experience. And I answer all of the emails for support personally myself. And I don't just say, thanks, I'll work on it. I try to talk to people and engage with them, okay, what's wrong with this? How can we make it better? Even if you're not a paying customer, you're still a customer. That's what matters to me.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people might want to create things, but be a little bit scared off by the fact that there are already a bunch of apps that do something similar. What advice would you give to someone who's really wanting to create an app in a space that may be a little saturated already?
Look at what's the pain point? Go look for the pain points in those apps. What's frustrating about it? Even if it's something that you look at it and this frustrates you, and then you just ask someone to download it and you watch them use it and you see them reach the same conclusion. Because that's what a lot of learning comes from, is just handing someone a test phone and watching them use it. Sit down and just try it. Just approach it. The reason I say you need to write all this down as you're working on it and list it out is because there's things that psychologically are going to bother you that you're going to forget about 5 minutes after using it. You're like, oh, maybe this is cool. But I really find that the way you succeed in a saturated market space is to discover those pain points and note them down, because they're a hurdle. And yeah, some companies are like, oh, our product's good enough that it speaks for itself. But I guarantee you, if you get rid of that hurdle, 90% of people who deal with that hurdle are not going to want to deal with it again. If they have an alternative that they don't have to run into it, encounter it. So that's my whole philosophy on the whole thing, basically. Go do it. Go get out and build something. Approach it. Plan it. See it in your hands. Because I guarantee I built that app, for the wrapper for Apple Music. And I got it in my hands. It was cool. But I was like, I spent a little while on this. I learned from it, but I don't really want to keep going with it. That's fine.
I think that's a good skill too, is to know when to just quit, given that you've already put some effort into it. Knowing when to move on or pivot is a good skill.
There's a quote that I kind of came up with, but it's a summarization of what one of my mentors, what somebody told me not long ago. It's pivot or die, which is a little harsh, but the number one skill set that you can have in today's world, and the number one skill set I've talked to multimillionaires and even billionaires in some cases about, is their ability to pivot. You need to be able to pivot and learn and adapt and change. Obviously I've been very consistent with video. I still am. I have this other company, but at the same time, I have this other thing over here, and I was willing to put a substantial amount of time to pivot to try something different. Because at the end of the day, I never think that you're worse off for having tried something. I think you've learned something. I think you've made connections. I think you've gone places that you wouldn't have gone if you hadn't have tried it.
Yeah, that's a great resilient mindset to have. And I think it's a good perspective, and not just thinking about it as a time sink, thinking about it as something learned.
Absolutely.
So you have these two sides of your brain, that one is the developer side, and you're also extremely creative. What do you think is a piece of knowledge that you've taken from the developer side and applied it to your creative side?
I think the biggest thing, it's expanded on I've always had this thing with video called the value-based approach. The number one reason I create something is, how do I add value to someone's life? How do I make it better? I think the number one thing that I've taken from the developer side of things, diving back in, is, how is this going to help someone's life? How is this product going to improve someone's life? And ultimately, I've also learned that not everything's going to work. It comes back to that that element of you're better off having tried and, it not quite gone the way you thought it was than having never tried at all. And so I think the number one piece of advice that I would give myself 18 months ago is continue to make something that provides value to people and try it. But not every implementation of a product you make is going to go the way you expect it. That's fine because you're going to learn something from it. Even that app I have sitting on my phone that I built last week as a wrapper for Apple Music, a super simple thing. I learned a lot about Music Kit. I learned implementations of user experience and UI and why certain things do the things they do. And also, crucially, I learned a lot about on-device AI models and APIs that Apple offers. So that's handy. But yeah, I mean, not everything is going to work out, and that's okay. It's part of the process.
Most things probably won't work out, at least the way that you planned it.
There's a reason Thomas Edison had 1,000 ways he couldn't invent the light bulb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at least you try. I mean, I just started this book, The Black Swan, about outliers or how random events affect your life. And
Not the movie, right?
no, not the movie with Natalie
The movie's great.
The movie's amazing. The movie is iconic as well, but this is more of a book about outliers and how they affect your life and how things often don't work out as planned. I haven't read it yet. I've read the intro, the beginning, that's what I took from it, is that random events in life will happen that you will not plan for, and almost nothing will work out as planned. Doesn't mean you won't succeed, though. And I think being able to adjust to that and being resilient to those things and being aware of them is really important.
It's huge. And, the other piece of philosophy I've really taken to heart the last, couple of years is, you don't know everything, but I guarantee you there's someone around you who can help you in your network. There's someone who knows someone. And, you don't know everything. You always have more to learn, no matter what. You learn a lot of lessons from personal hardships, things that happen in your life, or, a failed Spotify clone.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, networking is obviously an obviously good skill, but I still think it's a little bit underrated in how much it can help your life by being connected to other people, having a community. Not so much just purely what can I get from you and what can you get from me and how can you help me, but how great it is to network and how much people can influence your life and you can influence theirs, especially when you're growing a career.
The most important thing I learned from working at that other production company, the reason I'm still in business 4 years later, it's the core philosophy. You take good care of people that take care of you. I am one who will radically give. 9 times out of 10, if you just radically help people and don't ask for anything in return, you'll have some people who take advantage of that. You'll see that and you'll learn from it. But go look at how people pull things together. That launch party, we bootstrapped the heck out of that. That whole launch party was on a zero budget thing. The owner of the venue gave us the venue for free, rooftop bar, because we came in and we shot for him. We took good care of him. And that's what makes a difference. You radically give and radically help people and they'll take care of you.
Great. I love that. That's so true. That's a good philosophy, especially to give without expecting anything in return. Thank you so much for coming on. I do have like a quick fire type question. I'm interested in how you personally use AI every day, like maybe even the random small ways to help improve your life.
I'll jot a lot of things down, especially with, my notes app. I'll say, like, hey, what's this? It's a concept. Let's explore this. And then I'll put a lot of that into Claude and I'll use it as a bouncing board just to talk to it back and forth and just to get, second opinions on things. I love having a tool that has access. It'll hallucinate, yeah, but if you're brainstorming, there's nothing wrong with having something. It's like having a second person to bounce things off of and just expand on a plan further and ask it about market paths and market research, things that you can continue down a path with. Use AI as a scratch pad. That's my daily thing with it. And sometimes I will have Claude Code build like a rough version of something from the ground up just to test. And then I'll go start over, build the skeleton, fill in. Never a bad thing, just to use it as a scratch pad.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. I think that AI is great when you're the driver. I think becoming the passenger is when it becomes worrisome, when you're letting it decide for you, tell you what to do. It's helpful because using that muscle in your brain to imagine and create is really useful, and you don't want to lose that.
You really can't outsource human thinking at this current point with technology. People will fight you on that all day, especially all the Wall Street hedge fund bros who are like, besting all the things on the bubble going on right now with AI. But this is something a lot of corporations and companies. I have a friend actually in Midtown in New York too, who this happened to her. They replaced her with an AI agent and they lost millions of dollars. It's because at the time they were having to spend babysitting it because they tried to outsource human thinking without a driver.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll definitely see more of that. And hopefully it goes well though, in terms of for us for jobs. Hopefully it isn't all like doom like some people are predicting, which I don't think it will be. I think it can be a good tool as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just keep up with everything, learn to pivot. And, I think people are gonna screw around and they're gonna figure things out. And that's ultimately the case with things. Like I said, that company that actually let her go to replace her, I think they told her that specifically. I think they've lost like, I want to say 13 million in the last year. It,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's a cost to everything and people figure that out and people learn. So just learn to pivot, take advantage of tools and yeah, keep it on going. Keep on keeping on. That's what I
Yeah.
say.
Keep on keeping on. Thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this discussion. Are there any last words or piece of advice that you'd like to give the listener?
If you have an idea, don't be afraid to try it. Put it to tangible somehow. Make it a tangible item, whether that's something in your notes, or a little fun experiment you build in Claude Code in 10 minutes just to see if it's a concept worth going and revisiting and actually pursuing. Um, you have all the tools in the world right now, more so than anyone has in the last Lord Almighty, probably ever of human existence. I was going to say 2,000 years, but I'm like, no one had this 2,000 years ago. You have everything at your disposal that people 80 years ago would have killed to have. And we have a different set of problems with that, obviously, in daily life. Houses are not affordable, but you have more tools than anyone has had in human history. You have no excuse to not go out and try things. You are your own worst enemy if you don't go out, write things down, get your ideas to paper, and just try and fail at it. There's another quote. What a blessing, it would be. So many people would give anything to be born foolish once again. Relish and cherish the days that you have now. Enjoy them. Try things. Be a rabble rouser. Be a vagabond. Go out and have fun. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if nothing, you at least gain some great memories and some great learning experiences. Have fun.
Great. That was so motivational. I think I need you to send me a voice note every morning, and then that will motivate me for the rest of the day. Now I want to go create something. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. I love your entrepreneurial spirit, the way you just get out there and do things. And I'm sure others will find it motivating and inspiring as well.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. And if anyone needs anything else, email me at my support email for Y2Cam, I guess. I'll answer you there.
I'll put it in the description. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, take it easy and have a good one.
Thank you so much for listening to Alexa's Input AI. And if you want to follow along with my new episodes, writing, content, everything I'm building, you can find me at alexagriffith.com, on Substack, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you enjoyed this conversation, it would mean a lot if you subscribed, shared this episode with a friend, left a quick rating or a comment to help more people to discover the show and keep these conversations going. Again, I'm really grateful you're here. This podcast started as a side project for me a few years ago, and every listener who reaches out or keeps coming back reminds me exactly why I love doing this and I love putting so much time into it. I hope this episode gave you something to think about, something to talk about. So always stay curious, stay grounded, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for your support.